Welcome back to the Move With Purpose podcast, and today I am joined by the fabulous Seth Pinnock. Where do I start when it comes to Seth? Entrepreneur, founder of Symphony Co and C&B, public speaker, celebrated singer-songwriter, and all-round creative disruptor. Seth, welcome to the podcast.
That's nice. Creative disruptor. I like that. I appreciate that.
Seth, what do I need to understand about your childhood that has shaped the man you are today?
Jesus, gosh. Oh, Father Abraham. Small questions. What do I have to understand about your childhood that shapes the man I am today? Father. Okay, cool. My childhood, I was surrounded by extraordinary people that believed that anything was possible. It's a beautiful question because, you know, when you ask questions, you start thinking about the answer and you start seeing pictures and stories. So, I went to a church that had really bright and brilliant Caribbean people. I was talking to my brother the other day how we grew up in a very, I guess, well-to-do but quite socially mobile space where Black people, which was not normal at that time, were doing bits. And that was our normal. And so my pastor, Bishop Dunn, you know, was the one that built Bethel Convention Center. And for us, that was like, that's what we do. We put our resources together. We make things happen. There was a bakery on site, patties and hard-dough bread. But like those things were signals to me that Black people, I don't know why I'm talking about Black people, so maybe it's because Black History Month, but like that we could be quite entrepreneurial and resilient in our doing and our dreaming and our being. I think that really shaped a lot. Then like the church that I was part of recorded an album, and my uncle was a filmmaker. Like he did, you know what I mean? As much as we weren't necessarily allowed to talk to him too much because he was the black sheep of the family at the time, but we love him now and he's amazing, and shout out to Uncle Topher. But like, you know, we had insights to him doing BBC Christmas specials. He was a BBC director, film director, and my another uncle recorded Free Nelson Mandela, which was like a huge hit at the time, a huge anthem, and we saw him on Top of the Pops and stuff like that. And so I guess we just got little insights, little glimpses into people in our circle that were doing bits, and they were super inspirational to us. And that kind of shaped my ambition. What shaped my resilience and sense of like, oh my gosh, I feel like there has to be more than this, was just the deep, fractured home that I kind of grew up in. Just helped me understand that there was more to my life than what I saw, and there was stuff that was in my own toolbox that I could do to like create a world that I wanted to live in and help the people that were around me, family, parents, etc.
When you say fractured, what do you mean?
Church was both the most beautiful experience and the most chaotic experience at the same time.
I can relate.
And so we grew up in a very fundamental, what I would call a very fundamental conservative version of Christianity. That was super Pentecostal, high on its sense of spirituality, quite heavy shepherding, had a very literal interpretation of scripture, or when it wanted to at least. And kind of cocooned itself from the wider world. And, you know, and I guess that sounds quite, I'm speaking in quite elaborate language, but what that looks like practically was women weren't allowed to do a lot of things. You know, you were allowed to go to the cinema at times, or period. Like, you know what I mean? You couldn't wear jewelry. There were certain people you couldn't hang out with. Just like quite legalistic rules and barriers and stuff like that. And my mom was a bit more on the liberal scale than that. My dad was super on the conservative scale, and that caused quite a lot of friction in the house, which ended up meaning we had to move churches. And I'm not saying we moved to a hyper liberal church. We just ended up moving churches to a church that allowed drums, and that was progress. Can you imagine?
Wow,
that was progress.
And was that your mum kind of pioneering that move?
Yeah, because she grew up in that space, and so she was like, "This is." As still, it was still conservative where we ended up going. It was still old school, but it was just less old school than where we were coming from. Right. And where we were coming from was so old school that it was super toxic. And so that's because my dad still has and had a great allegiance to that space. Us mum moving us out of there was really hard for her to do.
Were you mum and dad married?
Yes, yeah. Really hard for her to do, but she chose to do it, and I'm super grateful that she did, because it exposed me to that world that I was talking about in terms of possibility and excellence and doing and being.
What core principles did your mum and dad instill in you when you were growing up?
Education, prayer.
Yeah.
Possibility, and keep things under the carpet, which is not a good principle.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? What happens in this house stays in this house.
Got ya.
Which I would then probably evolve into saying compartmentalization, or not dealing with stuff that should be dealt with.
I was talking about this with my guest. Optics.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
I was talking about this with my guest earlier, that the older generation, that I was talking about therapy and how our generation's quite like, we do therapy, it's our new normal. But the older generation, I was speaking to my nan about therapy, and her response was, I hope you're not sharing family business.
Yeah.
And crazy. I was just like, man. But do you feel like your parents had that kind of idea?
Yeah, and I wonder, I have to extend grace, ish. Because I wonder where it came from.
Right.
And so, like, every touch leaves a trace. And there's a reason they said that stuff. There was a reason they were so guarded and arguably afraid and fearful of what the wider world could have done if news was shed abroad. Yeah. And so there's the high distrust in institutions and government that we see because of the baggage of history, the way that the healthcare system still treats Black and brown people, the disproportionality in the criminal justice system, the idea that if you share that you just get thrown in and sectioned wherever people from other people groups are not dealt with in that same kind of strong-handed way. And so like those things could probably speak to why they were so, be careful what you say, because, you know, the wider world doesn't necessarily understand us or extend the same kind of compassion that they do to white people. There's that, but then there's also the whole idea of everything needs to look prim and proper, and everything needs to look perfect, and and we don't want nobody knowing our business, and this idea of being Christian means that you should like show that everything is perfect. So I think it's those kind of two things at the same time.
How did that play out?
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not sustainable. What you do not deal with will deal with you.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that we're in a generation now that has a wide, almost like oversharing, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we are here and we've got something to say. I love that.
Would you say you ever had a conversation with your parents where you kind of not disagreed with that way of your upbringing, but were you quite vocal in saying, I don't think it should go like this?
Yeah, and I think Mum opened the door for that.
Okay.
I feel she probably regrets it now, to be honest.
Yeah.
But her moving us out of that church that was super insular and had no metaphorical windows to the wider world or to other expressions of faith, Christianity, etc. Us being able to see that there's more than just this allowed us to engage with wider critical thinking.
Right.
And so, like, she gave us the finger when we took a whole arm when it came to that. Like, the idea of being able to critique or debate or bring a different angle or just be exposed to a wider point of view has been one of the greatest gifts in my life, because it gave me access to understanding me and being able to empathize with wider society. I feel sorry for those that feel like their way is the way. You get shortchanged in life.
So your mum moves you to this new church. Do you stay in this church? What's kind of like the next trajectory of?
Yeah, I stayed there till I was 18.
Okay.
So I moved there when I was probably around 8 years old. Stayed there till I was 18. Moved to uni, architecture, London South Bank.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely one of the most formative times of my life. And I learned to lead worship there. I learned to do music there. I learned to lead teams there. I experimented with my first events there.
Nice.
It was a really interesting space to be in.
So you go to university and you study architecture.
Yes, ma'am.
What makes you pick that?
So studying architecture for me was important for a few reasons. My mum paid for my extra tuition when I was in Great Bar Secondary School.
Yeah.
It's the largest state school in Europe. 3,000 students. It was insane. And there, most of the teachers, their only expectation for you, if you look like me, was that you were going to be a runner or a rapper. Okay. And my mum saw that was not going to be the trajectory of this child's life, and moved from working days to nights at Dundee Road Hospital as a nurse so that she could get extra money and pay for my extra tuition. That moved me from Great Bar School to a bougie sixth form in Bartley Green called King Edward's, where I was one of 3 black folk, and everyone went to Starbucks during. I was like, how are you gonna afford Starbucks? But yeah, during lunch or break time, and it was just a whole different world. Okay. And I'll never forget, like, they were crying when they got like B's or like A minuses. Like,
so the level of
expectation was different. It changed Anyway, I say all that to say that we had a trip. There was a trip that was happening for the rugby team at the time, because I was playing rugby, to go to South Africa. And I couldn't afford to do that. And so I asked I'm giving you a long answer, so forgive me. But I asked my church to sponsor me off the trip. They did. And I went to South Africa, and there I saw for the first time poverty, like real poverty. And I also had a love for design. And there I decided that I realized just how much environments change people's perspectives or aspirations or just feeling. And there I just thought, wow, like architecture really can help. Like environments, spatial planning, urban planning can help. Like sitting with people that were living under tin roofs across the road from mansions, like it was insane. So yeah, that's what made me pursue architecture.
And what did you do with it after uni?
Wow, yes, that's a good question.
Did you utilize it or?
Well, now that we've moved into Symphony Studios, we're going to do that. Yeah. But I didn't touch it, I was running around doing Midnight Oil, and Midnight Oil kind of was running at 100 miles an hour and just took a lot of my attention. And studying architecture, I did it. I got my degree, let's put it that way. But it wasn't God. But I still have such a love for art and design.
What made you start Midnight Oil?
What made me start Midnight Oil? Oh God.
Do you regret starting?
Oh no, not at all.
Good.
What made me start Midnight Oil? Midnight Oil was, oh my gosh, this is so. You know what's amazing about Midnight Oil? Midnight Oil will be 20 years old in a year's time. 2026, it'll be in 2 years' time. 20 years ago is when I started that, and people still talk about it.
Yeah.
That's just like nuts, that makes no sense. Like, it's so crazy. And like, what's really crazy about it is that it was just a vision. It was just like an idea, a dream, something that I just wrote on a piece of paper on my bunk bed about wanting to bring young people together to worship, to encounter what happens when you worship, and to be set free. And I think it was an overflow of my own hopes for my life.
Yeah.
That when you encounter God and his presence, you don't just leave with a good feeling or goosebumps or having a time of ecstasy in church. Like, it leaves you with a sense of purpose. Oh, move with purpose. It leaves you with a sense of purpose that allows you to like move into your destiny. And that's what Midnight Oil was. It was this pursuit of freedom. It was this pursuit of purpose. It was this pursuit of, what am I here to do in the world and on the earth? And how do I join hands with people from other churches, other denominations, other expressions, young people, because at the time the elders weren't doing nothing for us, or telling us not to talk to each other or work with each other. And so how do we like do that and create spaces for people to realize their purpose in Jesus' name? And by in Jesus' name, I don't mean like in Jesus' name. I just mean like the person of Jesus as opposed to the institution of Jesus.
Right.
Like kindness, love, compassion, forgiveness, long suffering, putting people before you. How do we do that? And so I wrote that on a piece of paper, and I wanted to bring people together to do that, and that's what Midnight.
So where was the first year of it?
At the church that I grew up in.
Okay.
Yeah, Gibson Road.
So I come into contact with Midnight Oil. As you know this story, I'm going to tell it you. I don't think I've ever told it you to your face.
I find this so amazing.
You've heard about it.
Yeah.
So Midnight Oil changed my life. Midnight Oil actually saved my life, actually. I was in a really dark space. I was 17. I'd been dancing all my life. And my mum seen this ad for dancers needed for Midnight Oil. And she approached me. She was like, hey, I've seen this ad. Like, they're looking for dancers, but the application's closed. And I was like, okay, cool. It's closed. I'm not applying. And she was like, no, but I feel like you should. Like, you've never really danced in a church space. And when you did, it wasn't a great experience. I think you should try. And I was like, nah, mum. So anyway, she puts in the application on my behalf, even though the thing had closed. And the head of dance at the time, Jasmine, contacted and was like, hey, we've got rehearsal tomorrow, come down. So I went, loved the rehearsal, because I was like, these people are dancing, but they're dancing for God. What is this? Like, I just perform, do the rehearsal, end up stumbling into this conference at, is it Symphony Hall?
Maybe. I don't know when you joined.
And I walk into this big venue.
This is 2013?
2013, yeah. And I'm looking around thinking, what is this? And I've grown up in church, but this whole environment, I was like, and who's this Seth guy everyone's talking about? What is going on? Danced at the conference, and that night came home, flat on my face before the Lord, gave my life to God the night after the conference. Week later, I got baptized. A day after I got baptized, launched Eloquent. 10 years later, here we are. Now...
Oh my God, you're going to make me cry.
I say that to say... I say that to say that Midnight Oil was the first time that I encountered God with my broken self. And it was cool. And normally you go to church and you got to be prim and proper. The first time I danced in church, my top fell down and my chest was out and all the pastors rebuked me. So the second time I danced for God was at Midnight Oil, and it just brought me back to a sense of purpose, and then Eloquent birthed out of that. And you were the vehicle for that. Just in case you forgot. And I can't even imagine how many other people's lives were changed by Midnight Oil. Did you know that?
I don't know what to say. I think it's a testimony of what happens when you're obedient. Because there were hundreds of people against what we were doing.
Yeah, I remember the protests.
There were people against what we were doing. There were people that were saying it was the wrong thing to do. But we pursued it anyway. Oh, God. I'm so moved. I'm trying not to cry.
What did you have to sacrifice?
Moved. Oh, my gosh. Oh, Jesus. Ugh. Yeah, man. And look what you've done. Look at this. Look what you've done.
It comes at a cost, though, doesn't it? What was the biggest sacrifice in putting on Midnight Oil time and time again?
I think you. Oh, that's a good question. I feel like, in a good way, I think you lose yourself.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that you just get to do in your early 20s, teenage years, you just don't end up doing because you're throwing your full self at it. So I use my student loan at times.
Yeah.
I remember my best friend, Stefan, who's still my best friend now, came to my house once with milk and bread when I couldn't afford it. Because I was just, all my money was going into making this happen. You have to work out who's for you or who's for what you do.
Right. I like that.
That's a thing to navigate, boy. You just continue to build. But there's been no sacrifice that hasn't been worth it. 100%. Right. Not one sacrifice hasn't been worth it. And stories like yours makes me think, wow, like, what would have happened if I didn't do it? And also, what can happen next when we do the next stuff? It just makes me think, risking is worth it.
Yeah.
100%.
And you know what's really cool? That the story doesn't stop there. So 3 years later, you call me and you're like, hey, we need a head of dance for Midnight Oil. It's back. And I'm like, what do you mean it's back? I can't say no because of how it's changed my life. So I get to have a full circle moment of then leading the dance team.
That was our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. And I brought a team of like 30 dancers that were all worshipping for God.
You're so good. I wish I had a bigger stage for you.
I know. Next time. If there's a next time.
Yeah, 100%.
So there was something about leadership development. It wasn't just like I'm putting on this thing. I remember there was teams. There was obviously A&T. There were all these different teams.
100%,
What is it that pulled you to develop leaders?
Beautiful question. I wanted us to pursue excellence. I wanted us to demonstrate what the church could look like and could be. I knew that there were people that were just not given a chance to really realize their potential or to grow into confidence. And Midnight became a space for that, for people. We needed the help.
Put it blankly.
We needed people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Teamwork makes the dream work. And I wanted to build a family of like friends and co-workers and dreamers and disruptors and just like, we could do something that really leaves a signature on the UK about what young people can do if they come together. And I wanted to do it in a way that was just excellent. I was so over us running church like a patty shop. I wanted it to be something that you could bring your friends to that were not from the church space or the Christian space and be like, this is actually dope. This is really cool. I thought that was really important. So
Why did you stop? In a sense
why did we stop?
What happened to Midnight Oil?
There's a few things. I feel like you serve for a season and you serve your generation for that season.
Okay.
And so I started when I was 17 and we did 10 years and the season had changed. Like I was no longer a young person. You know what I mean? This is for young people. It was led by young people.
Yeah.
And like the Gen Zs were coming up and starting to do their thing. And you want to give space for that. I don't want to be that old person that's holding on
the way.
In the way.
Yeah.
There was that. There was the stuff that I was going through personally that I was like, I need to deal with this stuff and make sure that it's not going to kill me.
Right.
There was me getting involved in other spaces. So I got to work at TIFN for a while, which is a global humanitarian organization. Got to build out some amazing initiatives and a sub-brand within that organization, which was incredible. Go on trips across Africa, Brazil, and beyond. And consult for different organizations like the Tony Blair Foundation or Christian Aid or the Diana Award, etc. And if you're not careful, people will box you in to what they knew you for. And then you've got this expectation of like having to continue to do this. Yes. Again, optics. I have to do this because this is what everybody thinks I need to do or should be doing. Yeah. And if you do that, then you won't grow into what your next is. And I felt like I was being pulled into my next, or at least pulled into whatever the transition to my next would be. Yeah. And to do that, you genuinely have to let go of what was. And it's so hard to do because you've orientated your identity around that. And you've become quite comfortable in that space. Yeah. But to move forward, you have to let go. You absolutely have to let go. And you won't see what forward is until you've let go. And there's been so many times in my life that I felt the pulling to let go and wrestled with it and argued with myself.
Too long.
Say again?
Would you say you hung on too long?
Hung on too long, or started to do it from a place of non-passion or just muscle memory. Yeah. And then had to let it go. And when you've let it go, then what's next is ready for you. It's been amazing.
What was the transition to TIFN like? Did they headhunt you or do you apply?
Neither.
Okay.
This sounds so bougie. I don't even like telling this story. So number one, before TIFN, I was at Message Trust, as you know, which was my first job. My first job out of uni. The most, like, the job that I was most underqualified for ever. Like, oh my God.
What was your role?
Steepest learning curve of my life. I was 23 years old or 22. I approached Andy Hawthorne about the Message Trust giving us some money because we wanted to do Midnight Oil and we was doing it at the Symphony Hall and we needed to raise £80,000 to make it happen. Okay. And I was 22. So like, you know, that's a lot of money. Well, it's a lot of money now, but it was a lot of money then. And Andy said, well, how about you join the Message? And as the regional director for the Message in the Midlands. And so my job was to replicate that which the Message do in Manchester. Schools work, prison ministry, in-house social ministry, enterprise stuff in Birmingham.
You won?
Me won.
No team?
No team. It was insane. It was hard, but I learned so much. And the war wounds I received on that journey, I have been able to use for the future stuff. And so when I was at the Message, you build friendships and you get to know people and introductions, etc. And one of those people I met at a dinner, just for time's sake, met at a dinner. And that person said, we would love for you to come to talk to our team about diversity and inclusion and how to reach young people because we see the stuff that you're doing. We want to be blacker, we want to be younger.
Yeah, basically.
Basically. And came in, gave a few points of what I observed in the organizational stuff that I read in the annual report. Then they said, oh, maybe you should come in as a 1 day a week consultant. And I said, yeah, let's do that. And then 1 day a week mushroomed into 2 days a week. And then they said, maybe you should write a job description of what you would like to be if you'd worked here full time. Yeah. And I said, I will work here full time because I still love what TIFN do. Yeah. But I didn't want it to take away from my commitment to the stuff that we were doing with Midnight Oil Symphony, etc. Yeah. And so I built that into my job description. Nice. I was just like, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna put it all in. And they said yes. Sick. And then do you
command your own salary as well at this point?
You can negotiate. It's a charity, so there's only so much you can do. But what was hilarious, which I don't even think is appropriate, to be honest. So I don't even know if I should say this. But they were like, well, write your own interview questions for the job. Okay. So I wrote the interview questions and we did an interview and then I got the job. Yeah.
Right. And how long did you stay at Tier 1 for?
I was there for 8 years.
That's a long stretch.
Yeah, 8 years, 7 years, and I loved it. And what I did was I was able to bring my full self into the space.
Yeah.
I carved out the job so it became almost like an extension of me.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, and I was able to bring all the stuff that I wanted to do beyond the UK.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like social action, etc. Social justice, etc. out there. And we built a sub brand within the organization.
What was that called?
The Well.
Okay.
Which is like if Tier Fund is BBC, The Well is like BBC One Extra.
Right,
So like to build that out, was quite a lot of hard work, but also like a great way to leave an imprint there. And once we did that, I knew it was time for me to move on.
What pushed you to leave?
I wanted to throw as much time, man, as in we're on this earth like that long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think I was turning 30 and I was like, okay, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And where do I want to be in the next 10 years? And based on those answers, how do I reverse engineer to get there?
Okay.
And again, that meant letting go and moving on. And I knew that I was giving, and rightly so and worthily so, because it was such a great role, so much time and so much energy to the job, that stuff that I was dreaming about symphony-wise, or even in terms of my own life, was getting a bit more neglected, a bit more in the distance. And I wanted to bring it more forefront. And so I let it go, and I fully let it go. And I was terrified because it was like, I'm not letting it go to another job.
You were just going full-time.
Full-time symphony. So that meant raising your own salary, finding your own team, everything. And so I left my apartment. I thought, let me get all the income, all the expenditure down. So I left my apartment, sold my car, moved into my friend's house for like a month, then moved to my auntie's house in New York for a year, and just started dreaming again and writing again and building again and working out how we're going to make this an actual organization and make it work.
So are you still doing A&T at this point, or have you let that go too?
So we are. So the album came out in 2019.
Yeah.
I left Tiffin in 2022. So we did the album and we were planning a wonderful UK-wide tour, 50 dates in 2020.
COVID.
And so that went well, as you can imagine. So we didn't end up doing that.
You didn't want to pick that back up?
I think by the time we got to 2021, churches were like, hybrid, not sure, and then the album was out in 2019, and then I was moving on in life. I was also aware that I'm going to move on from Tier Fund.
Yeah.
So sometimes you gotta strike when the iron's hot and know this. You just gotta know the season you're in. And what 2020 was the birth of symphony schools. Right. So because we couldn't go on tour and all the Black Lives Matter stuff was happening, pivoting to like, how do we respond in a long-term infrastructure changing way beyond protests, even though protest is super important. My response, or our response as an organization, was this Symphony Schools thing, which is free extra tuition, GCSEs, math, science and English for Black boys. And 2020, in response to the Black Lives Matter stuff, was a perfect time to do it, particularly because we weren't going on tour. So we started that, and we were able to do it with you guys, which was amazing as well this year. So super proud of that. And for me, that was a super full circle moment because my mom paid for my extra tuition. And so to see us be able to do that in London and in Birmingham was sick. Yeah.
I'm going to share another little story
my God.
that relates to A&T. I'm not trying to take you out today, but there was a song on that album called In the Beginning that almost killed me. Because at every Midnight Oil, we would do that song and then you'd get the choir to pull it back and the dancers. No one thought about the dancers out there hanging on for dear life. But I got married in 2021 and got married in Santorini. And my mom caught COVID in Santorini. I didn't know at the time. So she flew back 7 days before myself. As she got back, she was rushed into hospital. And I'm in Santorini here and she's in hospital thinking, when I get back, she'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? Get back, see her. And I'm like, she's not fine. Like, that's the first time I've seen my mom really sick.
Really bad. Wow.
Yeah. Hospital called to say, they're putting her in a coma and she might not make it. And I just remember listening to Already Done live. And I'm like, I'm not listening to doctors telling me she might not pull through. These times you can't visit as well. So I was like, I gotta be creative. Got a speaker, took myself to the hospital she was at, put Already Done on, and danced outside the hospital and was like, I'm going to dance her out.
Are you serious?
They're not letting me to the door.
Oh my God.
But it's already done.
Jesus.
And I remember hearing Wayne Brown's voice on that track.
Jesus.
Danced my mom out of this coma because it was already done.
Ooh. That is powerful.
She's healed, she's better, she's stronger. Yeah. I need healing. I'm not a singer, I'm a dancer. But that song
that is
held me down when they were telling me that they're ready to switch off her ventilator.
Oh my God.
Where did you write that song?
How did you dance outside of a hospital?
You gotta do what you gotta do. My car was my speaker, that song was playing and I was just like going.
Were people watching you?
Of course they were. Some people were like getting out their phones to film. I was like, if you're filming, let's film, let's go. But I didn't care because I think when you're in situations like that, you don't care.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
Where were you when you wrote that song?
I don't remember. I can't give you a bougie.
Really?
I can't give you a bougie answer. I really wish I could give you one of those. I was in a dark place. This was happening.
Okay.
So I used to write songs. I used to dream songs. As like in my early teenage years. And again, I come from a very musical family.
Yeah.
And all we was allowed to do was listen to gospel music anyway. Because, listening to secular music was the devil's music. So you weren't allowed to listen to anything but gospel music. So that was always pumping in our house.
Right.
And and then because of some of the stuff I was going through in my childhood in regards to the family fractures, wrestling with my own identity, etc., worship was a vehicle for me was therapy for me.
Right.
Worship was my time with like other people. It was prayer or reading the Bible. Mine was listening to music and writing songs or writing poetry.
Yeah.
And so I genuinely couldn't give you a time for that. I know that there is a Microsoft Doc, a Word doc with that song on that was probably written in 2005, 2004 when I was probably 13 or 14. And I just banked all the songs. And so even it's crazy. It's actually nuts. I banked all the songs and I used to, Amos, my younger brother, he plays keys. We should just sing it in the living room. Every now and then we'll have me and my brothers would just sing in the living room, sing songs. And this is like, I'll teach them a song that I wrote and we'll just have fun with that song. And that's where that song came from. Like, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say it's amazing the clear channel that you have in your youth.
Yeah.
In terms of like creativity, thoughts, ideas, dreams, possibility.
The tenacity too, right?
Tenacity. The stuff that I was doing then that I'm like, now I'm like, I'm a bit scared.
Really?
Like, you know what I mean? Like just the age. I think like that age is just the perfect time to dream. Yeah. And parents should just fan the flames of those children's dreams.
What makes you get Wayne Brown on that track?
Originally, it was supposed to be Wayne Malcolm.
Okay.
Who has been a great pastor and friend to me for years. He was the first speaker at Midnight Oil back in 2007. Wayne Malcolm had to leave because of the protests outside.
Oh no.
EDL came. It was insane. It was so bad. EDL came, just for context, because this is what happens when you say yes to the Lord. You put on an event at the Symphony Hall, you spend all your money, you write all your songs, you're the youngest person to rent out the Symphony Hall for 3 days. You're so excited about doing it. And then in the same year, Lee Rigby gets his head cut off and the EDL wants to come to protest against it. And they do it outside the Symphony Hall. And that was a fun experience, to say the least. And so Wayne Malcolm had to go home because he needed to get out. The police were telling everyone to get out of the city.
Yeah.
And so Wayne Brown was there, and we said, "Bro, we need you to learn this. here's the demo. Learn it in your changing room and just say so.
And he smashed it.
And he smashed it out the park. It's great. It was amazing. But what's even more amazing is you dancing. That's so prophetic. You dancing your mom out of a coma, man.
Do you do another album?
Will I do another album?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's in me. There's I've got a whole songbook. There's still like 2 more albums inside of me. It's just timing. And also you can't do everything. You can do everything. You can be everything. But you can't. Michelle Obama said this, particularly to women that were like trying to work out how to juggle career and motherhood and being a wife, etc. She said you can do everything, but you can't do everything at once.
Right.
And so like I've realized, even though I'm not a mother or a wife, I've realized that
I took the message from it. Yeah.
I took the message from it that I can. Right now, I'm focusing on building out Symphony, and what that can look like, and UN and New York stuff, and eventually we'll do some good old gospel.
What's the vision for Symphony?
The vision for Symphony is to become that North Star for young people that want to build, create, do stuff that will change the world, but haven't got the resources or opportunity or access to do so. And so for me, building platforms and creating spaces for people to become all that they can be is my heartbeat.
Okay.
We do that through, whether it's education inequity work, through our schools programs, whether that's creating music or podcasts or films in the future for people that want a platform or want to put out a book or want to say something or express something, dance, etc. And then events, bringing people together. I think there's something really powerful about bringing people together to get their marching orders for the future, to be exposed to each other, and to see what can be. And so that's what Symphony seeks to do. It's called Symphony really intentionally because it's about you bringing your instrument, me bringing my violin, you bringing your bass, someone else bringing their saxophone, whatever gifts are inside of you, whatever instrument you've got, whatever tools you've got, bringing it all together to create one sound. And so unity is a big part of that.
Okay.
And that's expressed in different ways.
Why a charity? What made you go down that lane?
I feel like... that's a good question. I guess that's what we knew. Okay. That's what we were recommended to do.
You look unsure.
Yeah, because somebody asked that last week. Why a charity, not a social enterprise? Yeah. And so I guess I was too young to know the difference. Okay. And everyone said be a charity, and now here we are as a charity. Yeah. So I don't know. I do have I do consulting on the side, which is like my business arm. But yeah, it's a good question.
You spoke a little bit earlier about Symphony, building a team, building an organisation. What's been the biggest challenge so far?
The challenge is, oh my God, the challenge is, so resources is always a challenge. And so the lack of resources causes a few issues. You either become super volunteer centric, which means that you are held siege to the emotions, passions, capacity, and intentions of people that are volunteering their time. Okay. And so with that, there's lots of pros and cons. You know that they're there because they want to be there, but you also know that you can't treat them like an employee and have those kind of expectations in terms of delivery, etc. There is the, I think trauma is a strong word. I think I keep hearing it around. I'm going to end up using that word right now. There is the trauma of being loyal to people that are not loyal to you. Okay.
What do you mean by that?
I asked Bishop Francis, I'm sure he might be mentioned it. I said to him, how do you deal with being a pastor of a mega church, thousands of people, thousands of volunteers, elders, leaders, and they all come into your life. They get to know your family, they get to know your wife, and then they just leave. And you've married them, you've buried them, you've christened their kids, you've sometimes paid their rent, you've gone to their hospital bed, like you've shown up when their kids have been in dangerous situations, and then like they're like, you know what, God, I'm done now, peace. But you've given like yourself your full self to them and your family have, but then they kind of are passing through. And he said to me, you know, Seth, when you ask God to use you, that's what he does. He uses you.
Was that the answer you was looking for?
No, I found it hilarious though. But it doesn't mean that you start making it personal, you know? So there's that. So yeah,
I like that.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Building, like leading a team. And then, so not taking it too personal. And what else?
That's hard though.
It's so hard. I
take things really personal.
Yeah, 100%. It's so hard.
It's difficult.
Especially when it's your baby. I think it's easier if you're a CEO of something as opposed to a founder of something.
I get that.
Because when you're a founder of something, it's almost like this space, your DNA is in this space. Your blood, sweat, and tears are in this space. And if I come and say, Romanah, I'm here to help, I'm here to serve, I'll do all this. And then I'm like, in a year's time, I'm just like, you know what, peace. Yeah. And then it's hard. So yeah, kind of trying to detach yourself from that is important and just see yourself as a vessel or a conduit towards their destiny. Right. There's been lots of people that I've been privileged to engage with or platform or support or bring on team that have gone on to do some extraordinary, great, powerful, amazing things like yourself. But like some other like amazing people that will still say like, yo, Minato was like pivotal to their progress or their growing in the confidence of what their career is now, which is amazing. So just knowing that like I'm a vessel for that has been fun.
One thing I've found, particularly in building Eloquent, is this is a blessing and a curse, actually. We've been quite lucky in that young people that have come up through our programs, whether they join us as a dancer or whatever, have stayed with us for a number of years, and then we develop them as leaders, and then they become choreographers, creative leaders, admin, and then they work in the organisation. It's a blessing and a curse because they know the brand, they know how we operate, and Eloquent has done for them what they're now doing for others. Curse because I'm literally training from the bottom up, where I know if I went externally, I would probably get those skills a lot quicker. But there's something I like about nurturing talent within. How hard has it been for you to find the right people?
So I think I think since you're pushing me just to be super honest, I don't think there's ever the wrong people. Okay. I think you find people and you work out what is best for them in your space. Right. And so I will never forget that. So just for example, like you might have somebody that wants to be a dancer, but they're better as an administrator, but they want to still dance. So you're trying to figure out how do I best place you so that this is still life-giving, but also adds value to the organization. And then that's always been like my mantra. I don't know if that's a good thing, but that's what's worked for me, because you always give somebody a chance. It might not be the full chance that they want, but it's like you bring them into a certain space. In A&T, there's been so many times that we've had people that weren't the bestest of singers or the most amazing of like leaders, and others would say, don't bring them in because they're not there yet. But I'm like, no, bring them in, because like these people might be with us as an alto, and then they end up being the operations manager in the organization. Sure, but they like the barrier to entry needs to be super low. The barrier to entry for me at the church that I grew up in was super low. Right. You know what I mean? I was 15, 14, 13 years old, working out how to do services or like being on the junior choir or organizing prayer and praise and worship rehearsals. Like give people space and opportunity to make mistakes and flow with it. It's easier to do the whole employment stuff when you've got resources to do that, and that's for cool. Sure, but I've enjoyed that journey of getting people to get in where they fit in. Has been fun.
And I think sometimes we often have no choice when we run like charitable organizations. 100%. Because it's like, do you know what I mean? Lack of resources, as you said. Yeah. So if people are willing to be a part of the vision, you kind of find space for them
find space for them, man.
What does building a sustainable charity look like to you?
I've learned through, and that's why I'm so glad I did consulting. I think it's so important to have a world where this is not your only thing if you are the founder or CEO of an organization. Always dip your tentacles or have like exposure or influence or a voice in other spaces that are bigger and wider than you, or have more history and knowledge than you. Because then you just end up recycling the same kind of things over and over again within your own space. And so being at Tearfund, the Message Trust, consulting for other charities, helped me get insights into, okay, how does this model work? How do they do what they do? What's good here? What works for our community there, etc. And so, so that's been really, really good for me.
Would you say that you've been able to raise the same amount of money within Symphony that you've done for other organisations that you've worked for?
So I've gone full-time with Symphony for the grand total of a year and a half. So
Which is good.
It's been fresh. Yeah, it's been fresh. And in that, there's been huge changes. And so we will do, once we put all the models in place that we want to put in place, I would say that you definitely need to hire somebody that sole focuses the money.
Yeah.
It's hard to dream and fundraise and do the programs.
And wear all the hats.
And build the hat, sell the hat, market
hat.
the hat, wear the hat, design the hat, sew the hat. Like, you can't do it all, man.
I get that.
And so, like, hiring people that can focus on those different pockets is super important.
And it's leveraging other people's expertise, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
Like, I almost burnt out.
Like, they'll be passionate about that stuff.
And the stuff that you're not passionate about, leave it alone. Like, I strictly now just don't touch HR. Just get me away from it.
You don't like people? No.
I don't know how to hire the right people. If my team watch this, they'll laugh. I can be in interviews and share the vision and stuff, but get me away from the decision making because I'm just poor at it. Genuinely.
What is your weak point?
My weak point across being a business owner is a couple of different things. So it's, don't ask me to organise the schedule.
Okay.
Like, don't ask me to do that. I'm not about the nitty gritty details. Okay. I'm a visionary. So I can vision the company all day long. Yes. Big picture thinking. This is where we want to go. Now, can someone tell me how we're going to get there?
Okay, Beyonce.
The small details, just not good at.
Okay.
Where are you weak?
So, where am I weak? So my team will say I see the forest and not the trees. So they they will also say I'm not super on the detail. Okay. But I personally believe that I'm okay at detail. Okay. So I love a good spreadsheet. Yeah. I love a good plan and strategy document.
Do you follow it well though? Or do you just build the spreadsheet? Oh, you do?
Oh, 100%. I hate when it's not maintained. Like, I will build a whole master plan. And then there'll be people that just don't want to maintain it. Right. But that gets on my nerves. Mm-hmm. So I love a good strategy. I love a good spreadsheet, a good plan. Yeah. And I love a good rollout. I think I am absolutely a starter. Make it happener.
I agree.
And then I want to pass it over to somebody to see it to the finish line.
Amen.
I'm definitely not a maintainer. I shouldn't say.
Are you a finisher?
Because we need funders to support Symphony. I maintain all the way to the end.
You got a team that maintains.
Like, we ain't giving no money to no non-maintainer. They just go start this and leave.
But that's why we have great people that are good finishers.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah. Because I'm always thinking about what's the next thing. You know. Doesn't mean I don't want to see it all the way to the end. But yeah, that's kind of like my thing.
I almost get bored when it's getting to that point. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you an example. We've bidded for some investment to renovate our space. And it took
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So good.
It took me a year and a half to get that over the line before you can start talking about it or whatever. I just had my daughter and she was 3 months old and I seen it come up and I thought, I like that. So in the midst of breastfeeding and juggling motherhood, I was banging out this bid. Year and a half to get it over the line. And then we got it. And I just was like, next. Tired?
Yeah, exhausted.
But that's me on every project. It's up and running now. Okay, guys. Where's mine? What are we doing next? But it's leaning into that because I know that's what I'm good at.
And it would be the beautiful thing. It means that you're not going to necessarily be somebody that suffocates a project. Or I have to
Absolutely
be. But you're not a micromanager.
I hope not.
Yeah. So that's
I'd
a good
like
thing.
to think that I'm not. I like to get out the way.
Yeah, that's good. That means there's space for other people to lead and grow in your organization.
Watch night.
I also want to say before we go there,
Okay.
I love that you sent me some, like, she's been sending me some funding things on WhatsApp.
Have you applied for any?
Not yet. We're not in a position.
Okay.
This has been a long...
Yeah.
But I love that, I think it's like that idea of us not being crabs in the barrel, but also like supporting each other and say, oh, there's some funding here, or this is what you could do with this. I think that is the future. Like this idea of collaborating so that we can be bigger together as opposed to apart.
I don't know why we
really
don't do that enough.
Optics. I don't know either. It's a shame. And we can't afford to.
Because I know it's a competitive landscape. I completely get that. But the same fashion that I've seen stuff that's probably not applicable for me, and I'm sending it to you like, bro, you've seen this apply. We don't have enough of that culture happening and I'm going to just be honest, in Black communities where we're business owners, we're not sharing enough. It's almost like it's a competition, like who can be shouting about more what they're doing or who can be diligently working the scenes on their own thing. But my motto is you can go fast going alone. You can go really fast. But if you want to go far, you have to go together.
Is that your motto? Did you write that?
I didn't write that, no. But it's just my motto. It's my motto for the month. It's what I'm leaning to. I wish I wrote that.
My motto. I was like, I've heard this before.
Not my motto, but my kind of mantra for the month.
100%.
That's what I'm leaning to because 100%. It's like, going alone
is boring.
It's boring. It's not enough.
God, I just heard my accent. Boring. It's boring and also isolating as well.
Very.
And so like doing it together is it's like you're cheering each other on the journey. I don't know why it's like that in our community. I think there's a big fear factor there beyond competition as well. I think people have been burnt in the process. But I think our generation can change it.
I hope our generation can change it. I know we're a part of that answer.
Yeah. Issa Rae speaks about networking left or like to the side as opposed to networking up. I don't know if you've seen that clip. It's really like powerful. That like the idea of oftentimes we go into these rooms and we're always focusing on who is our superior in the game or who's on that next step. Off the ladder and how do I get to know them or how do I work with them? But it's like, oh no, who else is like on the journey with me and how do I work like side by side so that we can create something next as opposed to trying to do what the person above us is doing?
Do you network well?
Do I network?
I hate networking.
Do I network well?
Public service announcement.
It depends on there's a lot of factors. It depends on the room.
Okay.
It depends on where I am. I try and build friendships more than hand out business cards. But you have to get past your comfort zone. Build a bridge and get over yourself. just network. Why do you find it difficult?
I don't know. I don't like to play the game. I feel like networking's a bit of people have to play the game to do that, and I just don't see the point. I believe in leveraging your social media platforms now. Like really? I've built so many networks via that rather than getting in rooms and having pointless conversations with people. I'm not a fan of that way of networking. I think we're evolving and we're moving on. And I think people leaning into their personal brands and their social networks and doing a bit more in that space can allow you to create networks rather than being in the room. Plus, I'm a mum of two. I can't always be at the events. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I've got kids to feed. I've got a house to hold down. So there's not every event that comes up I can be at. How can I show up online to stay relevant, if that makes sense?
That's good. There's no pushback there. I hear that.
What would you say is next for Seth?
Sleep.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not. What's next for Seth? So we have been gifted a building, or two buildings in South London.
Gifted.
Wow. Yeah, no. Yeah. and some other stuff that I just cannot say on this podcast. But we've been gifted a building.
Yeah.
Which is our buildings, which is amazing. And we got the keys like 2 weeks ago. So we're moving into that space.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And we're going to build that out into a music studio, rehearsal space, streaming.
Yeah.
Podcasty kind of vibe, green screen, and all that good stuff. And have some really, I'm dreaming of like having conversations like this or debates and the stuff that you said the church isn't ready for. Bringing some really great experts and leaders and thinkers and disruptors into the room to just start conversations that can help people imagine the future where they can be all that God's created them to be.
Wow. And
participate in that adventure. And then we've got another building where we're going to do all the classroom stuff. So carpentry, electrician, plumbing, and then GCSE extra tuition, music classes, music tutorials. That'll be our first brick and mortar base, which is super exciting for Symphony. We are talking to funders and sponsors and corporate partners and friends about this festival, which is going to happen 2026, which is insane.
What does that festival look like?
It is it's a weekend of joy and imagination.
Okay.
Joy, imagination, and innovation. It is bringing together thought leaders from across the multiple streams that shape society, from business to law, government, finance, faith, health, family, media, culture, sport. So really high profile and grassroots people throughout those spaces, talking to young people, helping young people, equipping and workshopping with young people about the future, and lowering that barrier to entry. So if you just imagine that Idris Elba talking to the 40-year-old version of himself about how to get into film or how to write a script, or Tony Blair discussing about the future of the Middle East with a bunch of 16 and 15-year-olds. And then peppered across that is, gospel concerts and Ferris wheel and roller skating park and all the cool fun stuff that you have at a festival. So I bring one of the documents that I was reading the other day said this is where Davos meets the Mobos, which is pretty cool. So we're doing that, which is exciting, crazy.
Under the Symphony umbrella.
Yeah, under the Symphony umbrella. Right. With other partners as well. Some really cool partners, like BBC and other spaces we're working with to do that, which is exciting. And then consulting. So I do a bit of consulting with the Church of England at the moment, and some other spaces in the US, which has been really, really beneficial to me from an exposure point of view and an impact point of view as well.
I always ask my guests to do this as we close. What nugget of wisdom can you leave with our listeners?
What nugget of wisdom?
About anything about what we've spoken about today, one that kind of sticks out.
Nugget of wisdom. I was gonna say raise the money.
That's a good nugget of wisdom though, because if you got no money, there's no resource, right?
Money answers all things, boy. Get provision for the vision.
Okay.
Definitely. Because everything else flows from that.
Seth, thank you so much.
No, thank you.